Good morning, students. In a previous class, I explained about the digestive system, digestion of the food and absorption. Today, let us discuss about the breathing and exchange of gases. Respiration is a character of the living organisms in which living organisms will take oxygen and gives out a carbon dioxide. In a respiration, there are two types: direct respiration and a indirect respiration. If the exchange of gaseous oxygen and carbon dioxide takes place between a cell and a atmosphere or water, that is called direct respiration. Such type of respiration is noticed in animals like amoeba, paramecium, and sponges among the multicellular organisms. Indirect respiration takes place in all multicellular organisms except the sponges. There, in an animal, there is a separate system called respiratory system and respiratory organs. Through respiratory organs, exchange of gases takes place, what we called breathing. There are different or varieties of respiratory organs are noticed in different organisms. In lower organisms like protozoans, poriferans, coelenterids, platyhelminthes, aschelminthes, earthworms, there are no respiratory organs. Specific respiratory organs not there. Exchange of gases takes place through general body surface by a simple diffusion. Respiratory organs develops from members of phylum Arthropoda. Phylum Arthropoda members shows varieties of respiratory organs. For example, you take insects. Insects respire through tracheal system. Some of the animals have a book lungs. Book lungs are the respiratory organs. In some aquatic animals, there are gill books and some have gills. In fishes, respiratory organs are paired, that is gills. 5 pairs or 7 pairs of gills are the respiratory organs. In group tetrapoda, including amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals, the respiratory organs are a pair of lungs. Lungs perform two functions. Main function is respiration. Also, it eliminates carbon dioxide and excess water in the form of the vapor. Today, let us discuss about the respiratory system in a human. See, this is the human respiratory system. There is a well-developed respiratory system is in a man. The human respiratory system consisting nostrils. It starts from a nostrils, nasal passage or nasal cavity, then a pharynx. This is pharynx, larynx, tracheae, then bronchi, bronchioles, alveoli, and a pair of lungs. So these are different parts of the respiratory system. The first part are nostrils. Nostrils are a pair of nostrils or openings present at the end or a tip of the nose. Through these pair of nostrils, atmospheric air enters into the body or a respiratory system. These are just openings. These nostrils open behind in a small cavity or a chamber that is called nasal cavity or a nasal chamber. This nasal passage develops a hairs. That hairs filter the air and prevent dust and any fibers which are present in a inspiring air. Then this nasal passage opens behind in a small chamber that is called pharynx. That chamber is called pharynx. I already said about the pharynx when I explained digestive system, because pharynx is the common passage both for digestive system as well as respiratory system. From the pharynx, food and water diverted into a food pipe esophagus, and from the pharynx, wind or air diverted into a windpipe tracheae. So, pharynx is the common chamber for both digestive system as well as respiratory system. It is divided into three parts. Pharynx. The upper part of the pharynx is called nasopharynx. The middle part of the pharynx is called oropharynx. The basal part of the pharynx is laryngopharynx. Nasopharynx, oropharynx, laryngopharynx are the three parts of the pharynx. Next, it leads to a small organ that is called larynx. This larynx inside contain a thin membranes. That membranes are called vocal cords or a sac. By the vibration of these vocal membranes, the sound will generate in a larynx. So it is a sound producing organ. So is called voice box. In human, sound will be generated in a larynx. So it is called a voice box. At the top of the larynx, there is a small opening, or it is present at the basal part of the pharynx. There is a small openings. That a small opening is called glottis. Through that opening glottis, air enters into the larynx. If any food or water particles enter into a pharynx, to prevent entry of food or water into the respiratory tube, suddenly there will be a lid which closes that opening glottis. That lid is called epiglottis, made up of cartilaginous tissue. So above the larynx, there is a opening for the entry of air. That opening is called glottis. That glottis is guarded by a lid-like structure that is called epiglottis. When air enters into the pharynx, it opens. If water or food enters into the pharynx, suddenly it closes and prevent the entry of dust, that food or water into that larynx. Next, that larynx leads to a windpipe. That windpipe is called tracheae. It is present in neck and chest region. The wall of the trachea is supported by a cartilaginous rings. About 16 to 18 cartilaginous rings present on the wall of the trachea to give support to that muscular tube. Next, at the chest part, this trachea divides and produces two branches, one left branch, another right branch. They are enter into a lungs. Lungs are the principal respiratory organs. These are long, pink colored, spongy, elastic organs. One is towards right side, another is towards left side. The right lung is divided into three lobes. See this lobe, superior lobe, and this is the middle lobe, and this is inferior lobe. So right lung is divided into how many lobes? Three lobes. Name: superior lobe, middle lobe, and a inferior lobe. What about left lobe? Left lobe is divided into only two lobes. Left lung is divided into two lobes. The upper one is superior lobe, the lower one is inferior lobe. There is no middle lobe because the middle part of the lung, left lung, is occupied by the heart. That's why left lung is smaller in size, only has two lobes, superior lobe and a inferior lobe. Inside the lung, this bronchus or bronchi, it is the branch of trachea, enters and divides into branches are called primary bronchioles. In turn, primary bronchioles divides and produces a fine branches are called secondary bronchioles. In turn, secondary bronchioles divides and produces a fine branches are called tertiary bronchioles. All the tertiary bronchioles are terminate with a tiny air sacs. That tiny air sacs are called alveoli. Alveoli. At that air sac alveoli, exchange of gaseous oxygen and carbon dioxide takes place. That's why all alveoli are called structural and functional units of the lungs. Each of the lung is packed up with 200 to 500 millions of such alveoli, which are called structural and functional units of the lungs, alveoli. What are alveoli? Alveoli are tiny air sacs at which that exchange of gaseous takes place. Below the lungs, there is a thick horizontal muscular wall. This thick horizontal muscular wall is called diaphragm. It is made up of phrenic muscles. By contraction, the relaxation of a diaphragm helps for inspiration and expiration. Diaphragm also gives protection to the lungs and heart from rest of the visceral organs such as stomach, liver and intestine. It protects when body is inert. Around the lungs there is a rib cage. This rib cage will also give protection to the lungs. From the ventral side, there will be a flat single bone is called sternum. From lateral sides there are 12 pairs of ribs. They will give a protection. Even from the dorsal side there is a vertebral column that also gives protection to the lungs. uh, this slide also shows the respiratory system in male. Both will be same, no changes in male and female. The all parts and functions are same. See, this is the nostrils, nasal passage, then pharynx, larynx, tracheae, bronchi, primary, secondary, tertiary bronchioles all terminate with a ear sac alveoli, and this is a horizontal muscular wall diaphragm. Next, in this slide shows that these are the ribs. See, here there are 12 pairs of ribs are there. Of them 7 pairs are true ribs, 3 pairs are false ribs, and last 2 pairs are floating ribs. Total 12 pairs of ribs will protect the lungs. This is the diagram. It is there in your textbook. See, it start from what I said. This is the uh, see, this is the larynx. Larynx, what is the function of the larynx? It produces a sound, so it is commonly called voice box. Here there is a opening. That opening is called glottis. That glottis is covered by a lid like structure that is called epiglottis. Tracheal wall is surrounded by the 16 to 18 cartilaginous rings that give support to the tube, and here it divide produces two branches are called bronchus or bronchi. They enter into lungs, produces fine branches are called primary, secondary and tertiary bronchioles, all terminate with a tiny air sacs are called alveoli. So these are all the ribs. How many pairs of ribs which cover the lungs? 12 pairs of ribs. They give a protection. In between two lungs, this is the right lung, this is the left one. Between there is a heart situated in a situated towards left side. That portion is called mediastinum. Size of both the lungs is the same? No. Right lung is larger because it has 3 lobes: superior lobe, middle lobe and inferior lobe. Whereas left lung is smaller. It has only 2 lobes, superior and inferior, no middle lobe. That portion is occupied by the heart. And below there is a diaphragm, is dome shaped. During expiration it become dome shape. During inspiration again it become a flat. Next, see in this slide. So this is the tertiary branchiole. This tertiary branchiole is terminate with a tiny air sacs. These are all the tiny air sacs. Their wall is made up of a single layer of simple squamous epithelial tissue. At this part, exchange of gaseous takes place. Next, see, this is a tertiary branchiole. It terminates with a air sacs alveoli. One of the alveoli is enlarged. This is the single enlarged alveoli. Inside it receives air during inspiration, externally covered by 2 types of blood capillaries. They are afferent and efferent formed between the afferent and efferent arterioles. Next, breathing. What is the mechanism of the breathing? How exchange of gases takes place in a body? Breathing has two steps, inspiration and expiration. The movement of atmospheric air into the lungs is called inspiration. What is inspiration? The movement of atmospheric air into a body is called a inspiration. Inspiration is an active process. It takes place due to contraction and relaxation of two types of muscles. They are external intercostal muscles present between ribs and phrenic muscles of the diaphragm. When carbon dioxide concentration increases in a blood, suddenly the muscles present between two ribs is called external intercostal muscle start contracting. When external intercostal muscles contracts, the lung size increases from dorsoventrally and also laterally. Laterally and dorsoventrally increases the size of the chest cavity due to contraction of external intercostal muscles present between the ribs. At the same time, this diaphragm is made up of phrenic muscles are also contract, so that dome shaped, when it contract, the phrenic muscles of the diaphragm contract, the dome shaped that diaphragm is become flat, it comes down, it pushes down. As a result, it increases the size of the chest cavity antero-posteriorly. So, from all the three sides, antero-posteriorly, dorso-ventrally, and laterally, lung, that chest cavity size increases. As lung is spongy and elastic, how that space create, it become enlarges. That lung also enlarges. When lung enlarges, the pressure within lung is called pulmonary pressure is falls down. When lung size increases, what happens? The pulmonary pressure falls down, means decreases. That's why suddenly that air from the atmosphere is rushes into the lungs by movement from a area of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. Suddenly it enters. So this is called inspiration. Inspiration is an active process because during a contraction of muscles, they consume energy in the form of ATP. That's why inspiration is called a active process. The contracted muscles slowly they come to their original position, means relaxes. The phrenic muscles when relaxes, diaphragm come up and become a dome shaped, and this external intercostal muscles relaxes, that chest cavity size decreases, that slowly compresses the lungs. When that compresses the lungs, the pressure inside the lung increases, so that due to that extra pressure, the extra air present in the lungs is expelled out, is called expiration. The movement of air from lungs to the atmosphere is called the expiration. Expiration is a passive process because it need not energy. Only that energy is needed for inspiration, it is not needed to expiration. That's why inspiration is an active process, expiration is a passive process. This is about breathing. See, it also shows this is the mechanism of inspiration. When during inspiration, so overall chest cavity size that increases, sternum come front, diaphragm will go down. See here, again sternum come back and diaphragm flattened, converted into a dome shaped. So here chest cavity size decreases, here chest cavity size increases. It shows the mechanism of respiration, means how that gaseous exchange takes place uh, between blood of capillaries and air of alveoli. Here what you seeing is a structure of single alveoli. Our lungs contain about 200 to 500 millions of such alveoli. See here, the alveoli is externally covered by a single layer of cells. The wall of the alveoli is made up of single layer of cells. The cells are very thin and flat and made up of simple squamous epithelial tissue. The alveolar wall is made up of simple squamous epithelial tissue. When we inspire, the air, fresh air enters into the cavity of the alveoli. Outside, see here, outside the wall of the alveoli is closely associated with the blood capillaries of pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery or pulmonary trunk, it run from the right ventricle of the heart, and that artery, pulmonary artery, bring deoxygenated blood for getting oxygen to the lungs. So this branch is the capillary of pulmonary artery. Then what type of blood it brings? Deoxygenated blood. So this deoxygenated blood contain both carbon dioxide and oxygen, but proportion is different. The partial pressure of carbon dioxide will be high in the blood of capillary. Which concentration is more? Carbon dioxide concentration is more. What about oxygen? The partial pressure of oxygen is very less in the blood of the capillary. What about in the air of alveoli? See here, this air of alveoli contain more oxygen, means partial pressure of oxygen is high. What about carbon dioxide? Carbon dioxide concentration is less. Therefore, diffusion takes place between blood and air. Blood of capillary, air of alveoli. The carbon dioxide move from its higher concentration to a lower concentration, means blood to the air. Which gas? Carbon dioxide. Because carbon dioxide concentration is more here, that is less in the air. That's why carbon dioxide molecules start diffuse from the region of higher concentration blood to the region of lower concentration air. At the same time, the oxygen molecules, their concentration is high in the cavity of the alveoli. They start move from their higher concentration air to a lower concentration blood of the capillaries. It takes place by simple diffusion phenomenon, means movement of molecules from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. So that's why here when blood passes around the alveoli through capillary, deoxygenated blood become a oxygenated blood. That oxygen is binded with a hemoglobin, and hemoglobin carry that oxygen to all parts. Means first it is collected by the that pulmonary veins. Pulmonary veins carry that oxygenated blood. So here the oxygenated blood will be formed. That oxygenated blood is collected by the pulmonary veins, and pulmonary veins carry that oxygenated blood to the left auricle of the heart. So this is the mechanism of that exchange of gaseous at the alveoli. To this point, I'll stop now. Remaining, I will continue in my next lesson. Thank you.